Yeah, you brought up guerrilla filmmaking, and I've always had this thought. Do you find it to be lazy, like lazy filmmaking to an extent?
In what way?
So like guerrilla filmmaking, like it's like no light setup. You just have your camera. You tell your actors go in the scene. Like maybe you have a bit of a scenario set up, but like
Is
you
this a
don't.
dig at corrupted youth?
I just brought that up with Spencer, but yeah, just like it very much feels like that, where I don't discourage it because okay, like if you are kind of going for maybe like a found footage sort of approach to it, I'm like okay, like I think it makes a little bit of sense, but I will say like I don't really like going into anything without at least some idea of prep or maybe just like some sort of bounce light or like a really meticulous idea of what day of light we're shooting. But I don't know,
Yeah.
like when I think guerrilla filmmaking, I just think very amateurish or like barely student film-esque.
Do you think that about, in particular, the Safdie brothers' work?
Not necessarily. Well, I haven't seen their one film where it was pretty much that. Because I don't feel that way with Good Time and Uncut Gems, but
Which one?
there was a film before that.
Heaven knows what.
Heaven knows what. Yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. I haven't seen it, but I've seen the trailers for it, and it feels like, and I think it was shot on tape, right, or like some sort of like camcorder, something like
I'm
that.
not entirely.
Yeah, well, it's just like that's where like okay, like I think I get the style that they're going for because like it's supposed to kind of be like following a heroin addict and like very unpolished, unkept sort of like situation, but I feel like you can accomplish that same look for something like Tangerine because it was shot on an iPhone, but again, it wasn't guerrilla filmmaking. They shot it like a real movie,
Yeah.
just like but just kind of keeping that unpolished look
Yeah.
where like that's where like I kind of have this little divide or like I don't know if guerrilla filmmaking is necessarily it's a kind of filmmaking, but I just don't know if I consider it like very like I just don't know if it's like technically quality filmmaking. That's my issue with it.
Um, this is my perspective on it. I've been on sets where there's um 50 crew members and there only really need to be 15. And I've been on sets that it's me with a camera and Cody in front of it, and nobody else is there, and we're able to pull out an emotional sequence where Cody playing Abe is crying organically, just from reading this letter from this other character, and we make it work, and it's always, I mean, I would say it's almost impossible to know like what exactly it looked like, what the situation was behind the camera. I mean, sometimes it's palpable and you can feel it. And you can feel like, oh, there probably wasn't that many people working on this, but I don't know. Like if I watched like Uncut Gems, I would assume all of those things are happening. I would assume that space picture, like the jewelry store and all that. I would think that that's lit a certain way, of a specific way. I'm sure they took hours to do it. I don't necessarily think that they're filmmaking now, although you could still call it guerrilla for certain things. But it's not, just I would assume, I don't actually know, I would assume it's not to the same capacity that they were making those films before they had people like Martin Scorsese involved. Like I gotta imagine that his involvement is giving them something and making production, if not more by the books, I guess I'll say, making it more insurable, right? Like, because I'm sure there was days where the Safdie brothers would go out and they'd want to shoot and they'd have to cancel when they were making their copious amounts of shorts and features that they did pre Good Time. But yeah, I don't like, I try never to be like, when it comes to anything, a snob. I think if you're able to make it and you're able to get it out there, great. Because a lot of people will just talk about it or write a script, you know.
Yeah, like I'll think about
And
making something or like oh you'll never make it.
yeah,
You're gonna make it if you just think about it.
yeah, I think a big shortcoming of my own is that I've started several projects, feature shorts, you name it, and have not finished them for one reason or another. And I'll sit on these what could have been, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and I don't know, like sometimes it's just like, well, it just wasn't there, and I canned it, or a scheduling issue. But yeah, I think it's always a very admirable thing if you're able to pull a film off in any capacity, and with any look, however you're able to get it done. And if I truly believe that the Safdie brothers were doing those movies, and yeah, maybe they were tailoring their stories to what they had at their fingertips, but they weren't just making like drug movies and like running around New York. There was other
Yeah.
films that were different and felt different, and were just like different narratives. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, just no. I don't think there's anything wrong with Guerilla in that sense.
Yeah.
I think of it more too as like we went out there without permits. That's what Guerilla means in my mind.
Oh, okay, that's a fair way to think about it.
More so than anything else. Like we put a long lens across the street, and Robert Pattinson ran full speed down the road, and there were just people walking past him that didn't know who he was or what we were doing. That, in my mind, that's guerrilla filmmaking. It's like
I can give you that one. Yeah, because because I feel like that kind of buys into like what it needs to be, kind of like Rebels in filmmaking, very much like a Werner Herzog sort of idea.
Yeah. Well, from my own experience, there was days on set on Neon Fangs that we're in a studio or in a space like a bar or a dance floor that we rented out and had permissions, and everything was fine, like nobody was going to come and like tell us to stop or confiscate our footage. And then there was times where we were just 2 weeks ago like going downtown and filming at certain locations that we didn't have permits for or anything, and again just like Cody and me out there with the camera, and him like walking around with the sword, and like anything could happen, and we're getting that. So Fangs in many ways is both like guerrilla and not, so I don't know, you do what you can. You just use everything at your arsenal to make as close as you can to what you're picturing. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing what you got to do.
Yeah, that's fair. And I don't want to discourage filmmaking in any sense. I just feel like, when you're a new filmmaker,
lazy,
I think it's
lazy, no, I wouldn't say lazy.
Yeah, I just think like for new filmmakers, it's just like, okay, like let's just get it out there, and just like that, and their artistic way to explain it is just like, oh, we're guerrilla filmmakers, we're just making. I'm just like, because I think it was something that I totally said, and I'm like, all right.